And I also do encourage them to get into case studies and into interviewing people, because another thing I find is that often they don't connect what they're talking about to real life experiences. So for the everyday person, you're not really getting that bridge to where you are.
Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. Many writers don't realise just how much their time is worth, and we waste a lot of time doing things that can be automated. And that's why I love Rounded. It tracks invoices so I don't have to remember who is paid and who needs chasing up. Now it takes me 2 minutes to send an invoice. Gold members of Rachel's List can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan, so see the show notes for details. Hey Rachel, I want to ask you a question. I know you're a big reader. We're just talking about that off air. But do you read a lot of mind, body and spirit books?
I do read a really wide variety of books, and I am a massive self-help fan.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at my bookshelf and thinking, oh my goodness, there's a lot of self-help up there. So yeah, I do like thoughtful books that teach you something or make you think in a different way. And what about you?
Well, it's probably not really my thing. I've read a lot of business books, but I do know it's a huge area in publishing. Anyone who's been into a bookshop would know there's aisles and aisles, and I think there's a lot of magazine articles as well as books. And I thought it was an area and niche worth exploring with. And we've got a fabulous guest today.
I know. I think a lot of people also come to this niche without much training or background in writing. So we are really stoked to have Maggie Hamilton with us to chat with us today. She is one of the country's experts in this field, and I think you might know her or be friends with her. Is that right?
I do. Maggie's amazing. She's a great friend of mine. We're in a book club together, ironically, so that's good. And Maggie, it's the best book club ever, and she's so inspiring. She's a writer, a social researcher, and a former publisher. Some of her books, particularly on parenting, are so amazing. She writes books and for magazines, and she gives frequent talks and lectures. She also teaches for Writing New South Wales. She's a media commentator, and she's, I think, a keen observer of social trends. She's held senior roles in publishing and at the ABC. And pertinent to the point today or discussion today, she set up and ran Alan and Unwin's Mind, Body, Spirit imprint, Inspired Living.
Wow, incredible. Well, Mind, Body, Spirit includes a whole range of spiritual traditions. So there's like inspirational memoirs and mindfulness, something that we all need to learn, and something that is being taught at my kids' school, funnily enough. They do mindfulness
Interesting.
every day. It's a big part of the curriculum. I don't know if it is across the board, but definitely is school. There's also significant life moments in this kind of niche and popular psychology and the whole wellness space, tarot and astrology, nature-based traditions, survival beyond death, and more. There's lots of opportunity there. So welcome, Maggie. You're going to tell us all about it.
It's lovely to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's lovely.
Very
We
happy to
know, well, Maggie, we know each other well, and I know you've written in the mind, body, spirit space for a while. What sparked your interest in that field?
Look, I'm really passionate about it, Lynn, because you just meet the most incredible people. And I love that it's an area where a lot of the questions in life that we all struggle with, that there are people out there who actually want to look for answers. And for the difficult stuff as well, whether it's the dark nights of the soul, death and dying, to happy and joyous. It kind of covers the whole, well, it does, it spices the life experience. And that's what I love about it. I just find it so uplifting. And I think we all struggle at times with difficult things. And it's wonderful to have somebody who's been there before you who can say, look, this is what I did and it really helps.
Interesting.
Absolutely. What are some of the more famous titles in the mind, body, spirit niche, would you say?
Yeah, well, I would tend to talk about recent classics, and those will be everything from the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying to The Power of Now, to Women Who Run with the Wolves, Medical Medium, Marion Williamson's gorgeous work. There's a whole body of people out there who I think have done really solid work in this area that provide quite original thinking, because one of the challenges I think we have at the moment is with this space is that a lot of the thinking isn't particularly original. And with a little tweak, which we might talk about later, that can be really much more engaging and much more original than it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Oh, it's so interesting. And you also mentioned to me before that many of the authors in this space don't have that traditional writing background. So
No.
that must bring different challenges, do you think?
Well, it is. And particularly when you're actually wanting to do a book with them, because they have all the knowledge, but they don't necessarily know how to put it down. So that's been a real, or was a real learning curve for me, to take somebody who wasn't necessarily an engaging writer and help them unpack what it was they wanted to write about, and break it down in a way that was manageable for them in their writing. And of course, that's what we all have to do, whether we're writing an article or a book.
Mm.
You know, we often have ideas swirling, but, you know, at the beginning, sometimes it can be a bit terrifying because you can't kind of see a logical way through what it is you've got in that swirl. So that's a big thing. And the other thing I found, for instance, I published in the Chinese medicine area. Now, Chinese medicine is so complex, you know, and of course it's thousands of years old and everything has a Chinese name. So I had this wonderful author who's both a lecturer in Chinese medicine and practitioner. So we talked and we've honed in on the organs have like a couple of hours, the major organs have a couple of hours in the day that are kind of for them. And so we did a book purely on that. We just took a slice and we made it very simple and very easy to understand, to the point that I went to my acupuncturist when the book came out, and to my great joy and delight, any publisher's dream, she had a pile sitting on her desk and offered to sell me one.
How nice. That's good.
Doesn't happen
Full
often.
circle.
Full circle.
It sounds like you probably be, needing ghostwriters a lot for these types of books, or, people that can create that structure and help pull those ideas out and structure them in a way that's, accessible to readers.
Well, there's definitely, I think, a role for people who want to ghost.
Yeah.
And these authors are one that are very committed to getting their work out. And so they're very grateful. And there aren't many people in this space who show an interest in this, probably because they haven't thought about it. Otherwise, what tends to happen is the author in the publisher ends up having to rewrite whole slabs, which isn't ideal. So definitely, I think if you're a good writer and it's an area you're interested in, even though you mightn't have a lot of knowledge in that area, that can often be a real benefit, because you're going to ask the kind of questions that an everyday reader coming to that subject is going to ask. Whereas somebody who's knowledgeable in the area, they can end up, as we know, making a lot of assumptions about the level of knowledge that the average reader would have.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Well, that brings
interesting.
me to my next question. What sort of mistakes do you see people making, when it comes to writing in the mind, body, spirit genre?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I'm noticing very much with younger writers, because I still work on a lot of manuscripts, is that, and I don't know whether it's because of social media, but it's like they feel that they can only bring their own experience to the subject. Now, obviously, if it's a memoir, that's what's expected. But because of that, I find the work is often very thin. And so what I encourage them to do is to reference what different spiritual traditions would say about this, or famous thinkers of the past, like the beautiful Sufi poet Rumi, or whoever, to flesh out their work a bit. And I also do encourage them to get into case studies and into interviewing people, because another thing I find is that often they don't connect what they're talking about to real life experiences. So for the everyday person, you're not really getting that bridge to where you are. The writers who do that, whether it's an article or a book, that just sets their work alight, because people aren't trying to see how this might relate to their own experience. Like you were talking about mindfulness before, Rachel, in your children's school. And what we're now finding with research is that schools that adopt mindfulness, retention of knowledge, and also a huge decline in bullying, and also self-soothing is happening for kids. So you could end up writing a story about mindfulness for kids, which is a bit wafty, but throw in that research and suddenly you've got a whole range of people interested in that article or book that mightn't have been otherwise, because it just seemed to be a little bit out there.
Yeah, it sort of grounds it in the real world, really.
Oh, absolutely, Lynn.
Yeah, it's so interesting. One of the things I found interesting is because all these sort of topics are quite universal, the human experience, as you say, they have a really big audience, an international audience, really. Is that what happens?
That's absolutely right. And so what I've always encouraged my authors to do is to take out local references. And what do I mean by that? If you're living up in up the coast in Mullumbimby, and you talk about Mullumbimby, that has absolutely no relevance to people who are not living in Australia. But if you say that it's a kind of laid back beach area that has a little, kind of hippie flair, then suddenly it becomes universal. And I think one of the great tricks of this writing is to take something, and this I think particularly also for memoir, to really give it that punch, is to take that personal experience and broaden it out by what I call cascading phrases, which link you to the wider life experience. And I also find those cascading references are very good for slowing down the narrative, so that a person who's reading your book doesn't miss that point. You know what it's like? We're reading at night, we're reading in snippets when we can, and we tend to skim. That also helps slow you down to say, hey, just hang on a sec. This is relevant to a whole range of things. And for you to remember, it also gives you a story to hang it off too.
Yeah,
Or a reference to
interesting.
hang off the insight.
So
Wow.
interesting.
Yep, I haven't heard that before. Well, something I noticed from your bio is you talk at a lot of conferences and workshops. Is that opportunity for that niche as well? Like if you were to write a book, that you would have those opportunities, or perhaps be able to, promote yourself in that way because you've got the book?
Yeah, look, I think the book is definitely a bridge to being able to get your work out there. And it gives people a tangible sense of what you're going to be able to bring to a conference or a talk. The other thing that I really encourage people to do is to get out there and do community talks, the talk at the local library or whatever. And that's where so many of my, as you might call, bigger speaking experiences have come from. It's brilliant because it gives you practice and confidence and refining your skills. The questions people ask often takes your work in a new direction, aspects you hadn't thought about or you hadn't thought would be important to people. And because they like what they see, they have a conference coming up at work, or they need an after dinner speaker. And, that's easy for them to recommend you. So definitely.
That's so interesting, because I would have thought that there are lots of opportunities in that mind, body, spirit. People talk about that a lot. Even if they may be engineers, they might talk about bridges, but they'll often have something a bit more holistic as part of the presentation or part
Yeah.
of the day. Yeah.
And I think, Lynn, that comes back to making sure that your offering has unique aspects to it. What I find with a lot of stuff that I read is that I can read a chapter and I can say what three thinkers those, often not reference, where they've come from. But the trick is to be, yes, we can build on other people's experience. That's how knowledge and information grows. But we have to work with it and make it our own and be curious enough to find new applications or new levels to that information. And that's where I think a lot of people fall short because, people are pretty smart out there. They look at it and they think this is the same old, same old. But there's always room for fresh thinking. And, doesn't our planet need it at the moment? I
Yes.
suspect so.
Yes.
In so many ways.
I was wondering because sort of self-help books and the spiritual topics and everything, is traditional publishing the way to go? I think there's some like specialist publishers in this niche or genre. Or
I was wondering.
there's a lot of people doing self-publishing. Is that a valid route for this sort of style?
Absolutely. I mean, the brutal fact is with traditional publishing is that 95% of the manuscripts that come in-house, and this is actually for every genre, don't get published. That doesn't mean to say you don't try and give it a go. But I think increasingly people are taking the self-publishing route because it enables them to get onto Amazon and to other platforms, and it gives them a universal audience right from the get-go. And it also means that you get to write your message in the way you want to and deliver it in the way you want to. I mean, the fact is that if you're in a traditional publishing house, you have to dance to a number of tunes. And that can be good because you actually have a whole range of experts who are inputting into your book. But it can also mean that if you're not careful, your work can get funneled into a way that perhaps is not how you wanted it. The flip side of that is that if you're going down the self-published route, then you do need to make sure that your book is really edited well, because that so often lets people down. And the time also to really look at your content is to have somebody look at it when you've got the outline, when you've got your chapter heads and kind of some nice fleshed out detail underneath, and to sit down with somebody who knows, who can go, actually, there's a lot on that area. I'd put chapter 4 in just a paragraph and at the end of chapter 5, meld those two chapters. This is a really important chapter. This is fresh thinking. Make it 2 or 3 chapters and so on. If you get that help at the beginning, it's a whole lot easier than tackling 70 or 80 or more thousand words that all have to be recalibrated.
Redone. Recalibrated is a nicer way of saying rewritten.
It is. I use tweak. I
Tweak.
tweak with
I like
my authors to make it sound like it's effortless.
Yeah. Who would that be sitting down with an author and helping restructure the book? Would it be a structural book editor, or is there another person you could
And
hire to do that with you?
that's a great question, Rachel. And all the Writing New South Wales and equivalent bodies around Australia have people who can do a reader's report. So I'm sure you could ask for that. And so does the Australian Society of Authors. It's a really, really valuable thing to do. I have to say that the sad thing is that most of the time I see unwieldy manuscripts that needn't have been so, because people set off with such vim and verve. And that's great. We want that. We want that reflected in the writing. But, it's also people who know what's out there at the moment, because it's interesting how often, and I don't know, I know Lynne has worked in the magazine space amongst many others for a long time, and whether or not you've both seen how often it's almost like that idea has fallen out of the universe into 3 different people's laps, and within a month you get 3. These people they don't know each other, but it's like the idea's dropped out, and you do need, I mean, if it's that instant, you're not going to be able to pick it up, but generally they will know the trends and they will know what's happening at the moment for you.
Yes. And you don't want to be competing against the same, really well-known or established author in this genre at the same time as you are as a new author.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's really valuable. So get a reader's report or hire a structural book editor at that first stage when you're just doing the roadmap of the book itself.
Yeah, mapping it
Yes.
out, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. Well, we understand you're about to run an online course for mind, body, spirit writers through Writing New South Wales, which is amazing. Tell us a bit about that and what people might expect if they were to sign up.
Yes. So I've been doing this course for a number of years as a day workshop, and people keep saying at the end of it, oh, can we do an extended one? And, I mean, all of us, I think, are doing many projects in one go, and it's just like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But anyway, Writing New South Wales has put together this program on the Wet Ink platform, and it's actually a written tutorial, which I wasn't sure about when I was writing it, but I actually can see the value of it because it means you can actually do the lesson in little bites during the week. And so what are we looking at? I'm taking people right from the idea to the publisher's submission. Of course, we're looking in depth about writing, but we're also looking at the common mistakes people make. One of the things that I'm very big on is actually getting each of these writers to hone in on who their specific readership is. Now, that might seem so obvious to the pair of you, but in this area, you've often got people who've got a body of work of a lifetime, and all they want to do is kind of like get it out. And they're not thinking about what's relevant, and also to look at the zeitgeist, because often that can pull in threads of wisdom or information that you've got in your head that is, second nature to you, but not to the person in the street. We also look at, I'm a great believer in getting writers in this area, I mentioned it briefly earlier, to do case studies, to interview people, which of course is very new for them, and how to use the interviews. We also look at things like practical stuff like permissions and things as well that you can't just go, which tends to be one of the habits in this area. People just take massive chunks from other people's work.
Yes. Especially if they're not trained writers, they don't know.
They've got no idea. So how they deal with that. And then we also look at the languaging for their subject, but also the languaging for this genre. So this is a genre that expects empathetic writing. And that is no surprise to you, but it often is to the writers, who often end up writing in, say, practitioner speak, or it's so beautiful, it's not kind of tied to reality. So I personally love numinous writing, but I think it's very important that the person in the street who's struggling to pay the mortgage, stay sane with the kids, commute to work, whatever they're doing, the elderly parents, it needs to be instantly understandable to them. So that's something we're looking at, as well as, the musicality of words, common mistakes, how to start a punchy chapter, using introductions. One of the things I encourage my authors to do is to use their introduction as a press release kind of mindset. So don't waffle about how, this has been a project in 20 years in the making and 3 paragraphs, but make it so pithy so that you guys who don't have the chance to read every single book can sustain a really good interview. So lots of tips like that and encouragement to get people on their way.
Oh, sounds
Wow.
wonderful.
Are there any sort of key questions that you teach writers to ask themselves before they start work?
One of the things I do, and this is a rather new agey thing, is to actually get them to write down why in a kind of almost like affirmation phrase. they're writing the book. And why would I do that? Because when you're writing a book, it's a marathon, and there are usually at least one, if not two or more dark nights of the soul in your life
Yes.
during that. And that is actually so that on those dark days when they're tearing their hair out, as we all do, and think, why did I embark on this Everest of a project, to remind themselves why they're doing it. So I've tried to lace it with understanding my own struggles as a writer, not just words on the page, but, those things of balancing out, friendship and loved ones and commitment to your work. And that's a dance I think we don't ever end up
Mm.
in it
Mm.
getting totally sorted, because
Yeah.
life happens, and how we work with our creativity too.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mm.
nice. I'd love to know your favorite authors in this space. What appeals to you?
Yeah, well, I love people like Clarissa Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves, all that mythology. It's so rich. John O'Donoghue,
Mm.
who's an Irish mystic and poet, and he was a Catholic priest, and he deconstructs for us the Celtic world, and it's so rich and powerful. I love books like the Marianne Williamson books. I tend to go for the classics in this field because, as I mentioned earlier, I just tend to find their thinking that much more deep and universal, in the sense that they're timeless. I
Mm.
find with John O'Donoghue, for instance, who wrote a number of books, including Anam Cara, Care of the Soul, that sometimes I can open that book and I only need to read a sentence, and it's so profound. That's all I need for the day or week. Now, those sort of people don't come along that often, but when they do, I think you just grab them with both hands. I have this thing where I talk about books to enjoy and books for life,
Yes.
and my books for life that I cling to, that I will go back to again and again. Rumi. I am a huge fan of Rumi, and I'm sure both of you are aware of the beautiful London Turkish writer Elif Shafak.
Mm.
And she has written the most divine book on Rumi, whose title I've just forgotten.
You can send it later and I'll add it to the show notes.
I will. It's
Yes.
those sort of opportunities too, those left of field
Mm.
opportunities, I think, through fiction,
Mm.
Yeah.
that are also very powerful as well.
Mm.
And that's an idea for all your writers out there. I worked at Transworld Publishers when we did The Celestine Prophecy, which is a while ago now, but it was a massive global sensation. And that was a self-published book by somebody who was a counsellor and working with disturbed kids and various things. And they wrote this book, which is basically about synchronicity, but it's kind of got an adventure kind of feel to it. And so he self-published it and was giving talks, and people were loving it so much. He couldn't keep up with the books in the back of the car to do the tour
Yes.
down the road. And
Yeah.
so he ended up getting this global deal, and we were part of it. But, there's hardly anybody who has done a fiction book with mind, body, spirit themes. And I read there's such an appetite out there for it.
Mm. So interesting. Great
Gonna get the
opportunity.
wheels turning with our audience.
Yes.
A lot of wannabe authors out there. Well, Maggie, tell us about your usual week, because you do the courses, but you also do your own writing. What does it look like?
Yeah, so I tend to make the weekday mornings my writing time, unless I have a big project on for someone else. So I also work on other people's writing, manuscripts here and overseas. So that's probably about 70% of my working week. But then I run a number of courses. I do a number of ancestral healing courses, which I'm really passionate about. And then I find myself giving talks and book clubs as well, which feed the soul. So it's a delicious mix. And when I'm writing other people's working on other people's manuscripts, I'm just as passionate about their work as I am about my own, because I really care about this area. I mean, there is some way out stuff there that, I think only a handful of people probably grasp. But generally, I think the people you meet, the topics, they just take you to new places. And I just feel our world so needs that at the moment. We need new ways of looking at things, new ways of building bridges, and
New leaders.
new leaders, most definitely. And I feel that this is one of the gifts of this genre when it's done well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
nice. So it sounds like such a good balance. So lovely.
I love
Yeah,
it.
because you always seem very well balanced.
Oh, I don't want to give the impression I've got it all sorted. I mean, there's plenty of days I want to pull my hair out, which is probably why it's looking the way it is. But, I just think I feel very blessed to be able to follow my passions. And, I was so lucky at Transworld in the 80s when I first got into publishing, or in the 90s, I should say, after I've been in publishing just a little while. I was lucky enough to work with a lot of the key people of that time. And I didn't realize how much knowledge I was getting through it. And, you just want to pass that on for the future, I think.
That is so nice. Now, we're ending off our podcast these days with our new fast 3 questions. Are you ready?
Oh, yes. Hang on to my
hat.
First question, favorite tool of the trade that you can't live without?
Well, mine's more a habit. And it's pinched from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, which is to take yourself off for an artist's date somewhere in your city that you love, that you haven't been to for ages, or you've never been. And you don't take the partner or anybody else. This is just your time to kind of be a mini flaneur. And it just recharges, and you never fail to find some magic there. And so it's great for the creative juices. It's just great for kind of filling the tank up again. Highly recommend it, ladies.
That
Love
sounds
that.
nice. I can do with one of those at the moment. So question 2 is one habit that genuinely saves you time.
Yeah, now I find if I'm asked to write an article or do something written, I have to say I don't suffer from writer's block. I tend to suffer from an avalanche of ideas. I think it either goes one way or the other for you. And what I've learned is to just put the ideas down and to start to work on them in short chunks of time. What I used to do is, I'd let this blizzard come onto the page, and then I'd be wrestling, I'd be like wrestling through the snowstorm to see the wood for the trees. Excuse those completely different mixed metaphors there. But what I've found is get it down on a piece of paper. I mean, obviously, if the deadline's today, you can't necessarily do that. Let a bit of space be there, even if it's only later in the day. Write a paragraph that you're happy with. It might be your opening paragraph, or it might be one of the ideas you love. Bit more space. And I find that when I say it almost writes itself, it writes itself so much easier than if I'm sitting there biting my nails and trying to get it down in however long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That makes sense to me too.
Absolutely. Well, final question. One thing you wish you'd done sooner in your career?
I wish I'd had the confidence to be more curious and follow the paths of my passion earlier. I mean, I'm lucky. I have been able to do this for a long time, but I think when you're young, fresh out of uni, and of course you do need some life experience, but I think we tend to get very influenced by everybody else's work around us. And I think it is the road less traveled. It is that trusting your passions that really start to inject your work with a unique perspective, because we all have that unique perspective. And again, I feel the world needs that now. that's not to say that we take ourselves off and we all have that vision of being in the cottage with the floaty linen curtains and it all just coming to us. I've worked, mainstream and busy jobs and done this on the side for years. Now I don't. And that too is valuable, I think, to be able to follow your passions and also have the mainstream job that gives you the security. And I think that's what a lot of artists forget about. And I think they see it as selling out, but I actually think they often choose a very painful path, which they don't need to. So
Yeah.
I think it's having quiet faith in your perspective and your passions.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Wow, Maggie, thank you so much. It's so good. I feel like I know you, but now I've learned even more. It's wonderful.
Oh, well, I'm only sorry I can't interview you two right now. I'm sure it would be
So
equally, if not
easy.
more captivating.
Well,
So
we can start a
inspiring.
podcast and then get us on.
Yes. But we'll put some of the details in the
Yeah.
show notes. We may put the writing news up. We'll put their website, and if they've got the course up in time for when it comes out, we'll add the details of the course as well as the link to your website with all the books you've done, because there's been a lot.
Yeah.
It's been a few. They kept me out of mischief most of the time. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much.
Hopefully
Really
many more to
appreciated it.
Yeah, so
Thanks,
good.
Maggie. All right. Well, we will see you all next week.
Fantastic. Thank you, Maggie. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.